take up all your time.
Okay, can you state your name just for the?
Timothy P. Kohler, Esquire.
So what profession do you work in?
I'm an attorney.
Or what led you to want to become an attorney?
Um, I am a late in life attorney. I spent my first career in the military. I served 12 years in the Navy. I was medically discharged in 2011, but it was my time in service that got me thinking about a career in law. When I was in high school, I was not the best student. I was solid at C to C minus student, so I was shooting for the stars at that point. I was dubbed by my guidance counselor as unlikely to complete a 2-year degree program, let alone a 4-year degree program. I would probably never get into a school, and that me and my parents should just face the facts. So before I graduated, I had gotten in the fire department, and they had started a program through the University of Maryland for associates in fire science, and I was actually qualified and I got in. So I was actually taking classes at the University of Maryland before I graduated high school, and so I sort of found a love there, and I realized very quickly that without an education, without work, without something else, there was no way you're going to get hired to do a public sector job like the fire service, which is what I wanted at the time. So I joined the Navy. I actually screened for all 5 service branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and I chose the Navy. I went in September of '99. I took my senior summer, enjoyed my senior summer, and September rolled around, and I went and did my went to boot camp. I shipped. I graduated in November, end of November. I went on to A school. I was rated as a damage controlman. And I went to my first ship. I was on USS Trent, which is an old LPD, which is a 35, well, I think it's belongs to India now. We sold it. Really old ship, though. It was a great place for me to learn my rate on. I advanced quickly. I did 4 years of JROTC and that kind of thing. And it was my experiences in the military that led me in the direction of actually going to law school. I had a division officer on my second ship who really encouraged us to take classes. The Navy had just come out with a new tuition assistance program, which didn't need in your MGIB. And so I said, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of that since I've got a DIVO that's going to support that. So I started taking classes little bit by little bit. I had a lot of credits from University of Maryland already built up. I had a lot of smarts credits from school, A school, boot camp, that kind of thing. I walked into my bachelor's program, and I was about 45 credits in. It took me about 3 years part-time doing classes here and there when I could get them in during deployment. My third tour I went to, I was in Navy Special Warfare. I was part of Special Boat Team, and so when we were deployed, as long as we were in base camp, in Bahrain, I was actually taking CLEPs and courses and things like that, and really knuckling on education. And when I was gone, I was doing all my stuff via distance. One of the last classes I did when I was at that assignment was called Fire and Emergency Law, and the professor really kind of made it interesting. It really piqued my interest because conflicts like that really always resonated with me. So I got into it and really did well with the class. And shortly after I graduated, I enrolled the school I was at and just started a master's program in American Legal Studies. So I enrolled and I started to go. And my first two courses, my professor in my writing course called me up and she said, "Listen, you need to blow off this master's and go to law school. You've got a knack for it. You know, you got a talent for the law part. You got to work on your writing, but you got a talent for the law. You need to blow it off and go to law school." So I started thinking about it, and this was shortly after I left boat team. I was on shore duty, and I had several surgeries and things. I'd come back. I had done two combat tours in global war on terror. Had to have some surgeries and things like that. The Navy was in the process of downsizing, so I had been talking to my wife. Said, "I think I'm going to go to law school." Started applying to law schools. Hadn't made a decision on how I wanted to do that, and so when I finally got basically my reenlistment package went up for the last time, they denied it. I told my wife, I said, "Well, I think this is the Almighty telling me something here. It's just, in the wrong place. I need to be doing something different." So I took that as my sign to go to school. So August of 2011, I started at Regent University School of Law. Did my 3 years there. I like difficult things, so it was sort of like academic hell week. It sort of mentally tortured you, get you thinking like an attorney, but there's a purpose behind it.
Absolutely.
And my experiences in the military, again, like I said, kind of drove me in that direction, not just from the academic sense, but I experienced a lot of things in the military that pushed me in that direction. My last tour, I was the director for the sexual assault prevention and response program for Naval Station Norfolk. I actually built the program that had basically fallen into extreme disrepair. We had no advocates, we had no POCs, we had no reporters, we didn't have anybody that we needed to do our function, and it was DoD mandated. So I basically rebuilt that program. That was something that usually you had an E7 or an E8 that was doing. I was an E6, I was doing it. I actually sort of pushed my E7 out of the way because she wasn't really doing very, she wasn't doing anything with it. Rebuilt the program, but having gone through those, working with victims, it kind of got me seeing something a little bit differently, and having learned a little bit in my master's program about it, I started seeing how flawed the criminal justice system was as far as victims were concerned, and began to realize that their redress is in civil. So I started thinking that's what I want to do with civil. And then when I started working here as an intern, it pushed me in other directions. But it was that part of that experience is what got me in that direction. The other thing was the military is an inherently adversarial environment. It's a socially aggressive environment. It's sort of like a rat race in some things. In the younger years, the aggression is focused towards getting you to do things a certain way, getting you basically in line to do your job and to do your job well and to maintain discipline. As you get more senior, it's about how can I step on this other guy to make myself look good. You'll see a lot of that in the middle management, we'll call it E5, E6 rank. Get into the E7s. Other things that I saw was young guys that were having a hard time adjusting, rather than trying to work with them and bring them up to speed. You would have some leaders that did that. Others you would have what we call put the screws to them, which were trying to basically force them out. We had incidents. One of the judicial or non-judicial processes in the military is an Article 15, which would be a non-judicial punishment, where you have a captain, commanding officer, who is not an attorney, has never had any legal training for the most part, who is adjudicating basically what would be amounted to misdemeanors, and guys are losing their careers over it, and allowing evidence that was either irrelevant or inadmissible, to affect these decisions. And so part of my practice now is I do our federal military practice. I do NJP, non-judicial punishments. I just won an appeal on one of them, and I do court martials, private counsel for court martials, because a lot of times if you're a soldier or a sailor or an airman or a marine, you get in trouble, you get court martial, they're going to appoint you some fledgling attorney out of the defense shop who's not tried a case, but probably never even seen a case. So that's part of why I do that area of practice. So what pushed me in my chosen profession, I guess you could say, was saw a lot of socially diverse interaction between people because the military is a huge melting pot. You've got people from all walks of life, all over the world, not just all over the country, but all over the world coming together, thrown into one place, and being expected to work together. So it was a very eye-opening experience, and it was something that helped me to develop, the way I saw things. I saw how men and women interacted in a very sexually hostile environment. The military is in of itself and has always been a very masculine and charged environment, which women tend to not fit very well into. Um, Results in a lot of conflicts and other things. And I've seen a lot of abuses on both ends. So a lot of that was not just, it wasn't just to be I guess it wasn't my decision to become an attorney. It was not just as a social engineering kind of thing. It was more or less to kind of preserve some of our morality and status quo, if you will, the way things have worked. No need to mess with them. So I guess you say what most compelled me to go into the practice of law was my desire to, first of all, be a voice for people who were otherwise being silenced. Second of all, to make sure that everyone's rights are protected. We all have rights, inherent rights, endowed, and then we need to make sure that those are kept and protected. So please excuse my slight interruption. So that being said, it was always a question for me of, does everyone have inherent rights? If they do, who's going to be there to be the voice for them? Because you have rights, I have rights. I'd say 90% of the population doesn't know how to stand up for them, doesn't know how to assert them properly, or they infringe other rights by trying to do so. So anyway, it was my experiences, I guess you say, my life experiences in the military kind of pushed me in this direction.
Looking at yourself back when you were in high school, would you have ever seen yourself coming to achieve everything you've achieved in your lifespan?
Would I have seen it? My mom did. You should have listened to her later on. My life took a definite course change about 5 years ago. So would I have seen it at this point? If you would have asked me in high school, would I be here at some point, I'd have told you you're crazy. Because my academic prowess was not there. I just was not. I did not have much in the way of desire to learn. I was a doer. I'm still a doer in many ways. As a matter of fact, I like to teach that way. I teach at Atlantic Christian University, and I try to make my lessons extremely practical because, frankly, sitting around being lectured about theory is boring. I want to show and I want to see practical application for what you do, for what you learn. So that was one of the draws to the military, was that I would actually get to do something.
So, at this point in your life, would you say that practicing law is your bliss?
My bliss?
Yes,
My
make you
calling.
happy.
Would I want to do anything else? No. I mean, apart from being a parent and a father and a husband, and a few things that I enjoy in my leisure time, which is very slim, but the needs of others tend to take over my own personal needs a lot of time. No, I couldn't really see myself doing anything else. I love what I do. It was one of those things, like I said, about 5 years ago, it was like a wake-up call. This is what you should be doing, and I've been a happier man for it. I was extremely frustrated with the environment of the military. The military in itself is an enormous social experiment. I'm very much very, very conservative to the nth degree. And leave me alone. And so they kind of like to push these social projects on me, and that just wasn't sitting well with me. I had a conversation with one of my former commanders, a friend of mine that I knew on active duty last week. Just something that made me happy. I knew there was something, time for a change. And even when times were good, I wasn't actually making pretty good money. Supporting my family pretty easily. And the only downside was I was having So that being the case, I guess I don't know how best to answer your question. Is it give me bliss? I guess bliss can be found. Bliss can be found when you have that one client who's facing annihilation, and you snatch him out of the jaws of annihilation, and you see the look on their face, and then you see the look on the other attorney's face.
Okay, you just said that you have to teach. What do you teach?
I teach a course called FM 401. It's legal and policy issues in family ministry for Mid-Atlantic Christian University in Mississippi.
And what is that?
It is a course. It's a required course for counseling and ministry students, um, basically regarding public policy considerations, making public policy programs, things of that nature that go to the family, and then legal considerations, laws, if you will, that impact and affect families, predominantly locally, because the school's big push is to send local students out into the community into either ministry or social work or something like that. So, it's curtailed towards ministry. There has a lot of Christian emphasis, which the law is. The law is actually rooted in Judeo-Christian principle, regardless of what anybody else thinks. It's the truth. So it's not a hard crossover, and it basically helps students get ready to encounter these things in life.
Excuse me. So I've noticed through the process of this interview that a lot of your motive, per se, morale, or not morale, but motive, incentive to do something is you want to make a change in the world, or you want to make a change in the community. And I believe you elaborated on it a lot earlier. Is the change you want to make the flaws of our judicial system as it is at the moment? Or just how people aren't exactly getting heard?
Well, you're asking me sort of a loaded question there. First of all,
My apologies.
no, that's okay. I'll try to answer one at a time. First of all, making a difference in the world is more than just in the judicial system. It's also one of the things we talked about in law school is practicing law. That on your license you are an attorney and counselor in law, and so some of it is in many ways akin to a ministry, in that you have the opportunity to make a boots on ground, if you will, impression with your clients. You get clients from all walks of life that are experiencing all sorts of different hardships. People come to you with every problem in the book, and what they want from you is answers to every one of those problems. Are we still recording?
Yes, we're still
Just
recording.
making sure. So they expect you to be able to answer all their questions, solve all their problems, and cure all their ills, which is difficult. It's difficult sometimes. Sometimes you can deal with a lot of it. The military prepared me for a lot of that because you experience a lot of these things over and over, and you see them. You become numb to some of these issues. But as far as making a difference, the first way you can make a difference is in your clients. First of all, by being honest. One of the most misgotten concepts of morality, especially for Christians, is the whole judge not lest you be judged. People say, "Well, you can't judge me. You can't tell me what I'm doing wrong." Well, I will be the first one to tell you what you're doing wrong, and I will judge you infinitely for that because that's what you're paying me to do. Because if I'm not doing my job because those things will certainly come out. I'm not judging you, telling you to fix them. Then the judge will judge you and tell you that, guess what? You're wrong.
Yeah.
And they'd rather me do it, and help them fix it. And then you're not a hypocrite, which is the actual purpose behind that saying in that passage of the Bible. But the point to that is that you have the opportunity to sit down with somebody who's doing really awful things in their life, in some cases, and say, "Listen, the reason you're in this predicament, you're paying me $225 an hour, which is my published rate, is because you have done these things, and you'll continue to pay me this much money if you don't stop it. Well, I have a right to be happy. Yes, you do, but I also have a right to be paid. So
Yes.
if you want to keep doing what makes you happy, you're going to have to keep paying me because you're going to continue to have these problems. There's a reason for it. The other issue is not so much correcting the problems in the judicial system. The judicial system in and of itself has created many of the problems. I'm not so much of a proponent of progress as I am a proponent of stopping the perpetual changes in the judicial system. We have a good system. We have the best system in the world. We need to stop trying to become Europe. This way we don't end up with their problems.
Yes.
So, like I said, it's not so much a matter of changing or progressing the system. It's sort of slowing it down. There's a need to, in some respects, to change things. Sometimes there are things that need to change.
What kind of educational requirements does it take to be an attorney?
Well, you have to obviously graduate high school.
Obviously.
Actually, that's not necessarily a requirement. One of our employees at the firm here used to be an attorney. He's just our firm manager now. He actually dropped out and got his GED. Went to TCC and then went to law school. But generally speaking, you graduate high school or get a GED if you get around that requirement. Some people can't. You go to undergrad, so you have to complete a bachelor's degree. Generally, it's 120, 125 credits. You'll have to graduate with at least a 3.0 or better for your undergrad. And then you'll need to take what's called the LSAT, or the Law School Admissions Test, which is kind of a bear. I used to teach that test takers. And it's, for the average taker, it's going to take you about 3 months to get ready for it, at least. Some people take more. You'll have to cut about a 150 on that, at least, and then you would start your application process. The other things that people don't realize that actually go into the process is that it's not just a matter so much of having educational premise, it's also having the moral background. Whereas a lot of jokes are made about attorneys being immoral, it's not necessarily the case. We're actually held to very high moral standards, meaning that if we get into our own legal trouble, such as criminal things, we have to actually notify the bar, hey, I got charged with something, or hey, I'm being sued for something. We have to be open and honest about those things. We're required to maintain an above average standard of conduct, and that goes into law school admissions as well. You have to provide copies of any arrest records or any civil actions. I had to provide information on a ticket I got when I was 17. 35.
Very thorough.
Right. So I mean, just as a an idea, you not only have to get through undergrad, and not only that, you have to focus your undergraduate studies in some kind of area that's going to be applicable. Some schools are more picky about that than others. It really doesn't matter what your undergrad is in, provided that the admissions council sees that you're a good candidate.
Is there anything that you would like to say to our viewers? Anything for them to carry with them through the rest of their high school career or through the rest of their life?
Stay in school, listen to your mom. Do your own thing, don't ever let anybody tell you you can't. The only person that's going to limit you is you.
Is that it?
Don't feed Mogwai after midnight. Don't get them wet. And knowing is half the battle.
Like Mr. Miyagi said.
I'm trying to think if there's any other words of wisdom. The only thing that keeps people from being good and being great, the only difference is being ready to take a risk.
Thank you. 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Well, I got school tomorrow, man. Can you schedule something in the afternoon?
What time in the afternoon can you do it?
Any time after 3:30, really, because we get out of school at 2:55.
Okay.
still be able to do it tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock? Because I have English first period, and that's the class I'm doing this for, and I'm pretty sure I can ask my English teacher right now if he'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I can do it at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Alright, give me 1 second, please.
Sheriff Randy Cartwright is not available to take your call. Please leave your name, number, and a brief message, and he will return your call. Thank you. At the tone, please record your message. When you are finished recording, hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hey, Sheriff Cartwright, it's Tavissenior. We spoke on the phone earlier about meeting up for an interview on my senior project. And you had offered for me to come and meet you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Well, I will be able to make that interview, that meeting. Just as a reminder, I will be filming it for my senior project. I hope that's okay. And I reckon I'll just see you then in case you get a hold of this and something changes by then. You need to let me know. My number is 765. Thank you. Have a blessed day. Perfect interview weather. Here in about 30 minutes, I'll be leaving to go interview Randy Cartwright, Sheriff of the Pasquotank County Sheriff's Department. Today's date is October 2nd, 2015. And yeah, I'm pretty geared up about this, because, I've always either wanted to be a police officer or I've always wanted to be a mechanic. So, this way I at least get to explore my options and see which one I want to do more so I can pick, right? Hopefully this rain isn't going to be too much of an issue because it's raining pretty rough. Alright, would you state your name, please?
Randy Cartwright.
What do you do, Mr. Cartwright?
I'm the sheriff here in Pasquotank County.
What led you to be sheriff at Pasquotank?
Well, I grew up on a family farm, and we had a lot of people that worked for us on the farm that were working part-time with us that were actually in law enforcement, and I'd always had a great interest in law enforcement. I've always been interested in things where I could help people, and I saw law enforcement as a chance to do that. So I got started my career with the police department in 1984. And then I worked there until 1992 when I went to work for a regional drug task force that worked the northeastern regional part of North Carolina. And then the sheriff at the time was retiring in 94, so I ran for election and won, and been lucky that I've been reelected every 4 years until now. So, and I've enjoyed it because it's about helping people and serving people. When I started out in law enforcement, the chief at that time ended up serving over 50 years as a police chief, and he was big on that protect and serve logo that police departments and law enforcement follow.
Where did you start out? Did you start in Pasquotank?
Started at Elizabeth City Police Department.
Okay. What kind of educational requirements does it take to be a police officer?
Right now is, of course, we stress for them to go ahead and get as much education as they can, 2-year or even 4-year degree, but the minimum requirements is that you got to be 21 years old and you have to have a high school diploma or a GED. It's the only requirements. Of course, you've got to have a clean criminal background. There's a lot of criminal charges that will prevent you from receiving your certification, even if you had the other things.
Absolutely. So you said you like to help people. Has this been just something that's been a passion to you for a very long time, or?
Yeah, I mean, all the time, even growing up and always, and even in high school and in middle school, as I was involved in clubs that went out and helped people and done things for the community. I'm in a lot of civic groups for the same reason, is because different ones do different things. Versus the shrine that I'm in, which has a Shriners Hospital and do stuff for crippled children, to Rotary, where we do stuff overseas for clean water, to helping out community with the science museum downtown and things like that. So I've always had a compassion for helping people. What does
your job? What do you do exactly?
I mean, I'm actually oversee all law enforcement for the county of Pasquotank. We primarily handle criminal outside the city limits. We do some in the city if we're requested this, but we have override jurisdiction as the sheriff. We do all the civil papers. We run the courts. We move mental patients around and haul care them to places where they need to seek help at hospitals. We do a lot of things with education. We have DARE programs. We have different programs that all fall under my umbrella. Is that we do school resource officer program in all the middle schools and the alternative school and the high schools. Even though these schools, all but 2 of them are in the city. And we have a city police here, and we work closely with them and the SBI and the FBI.
Would you consider what you do as sheriff of Pasquotank County a bliss? Does this make you happy?
Oh yeah, I enjoy it because, like I said, I mean, no matter what field you go into, you got to love your job. There's nothing more miserable than going to work every day and hating your job. I go to work every day loving my job.
Now, right before you graduated high school, or when you were younger, would you have seen yourself this far into the future being an actual sheriff of Pasquotank County?
No, sir. I mean, matter of fact, when I first left high school, I went and took some different college courses and stuff, but I actually was still working on a family farm. And of course, farming is tough. And
Absolutely.
You depend on the weather. You depend on the crop prices and all that and things like that but I'd always, like I said, it's been around a lot of people in law enforcement and always wanted to look at it, but I thought I'd go start law enforcement and see where it went and as I got in it, I always thought about maybe being the sheriff or being a police chief somewhere. And like I said, the cards just fell into place. The sheriff who was in Tavissenior was retiring after 20 years. I was working on a regional drug task force, and several people asked me about considering to run for it, so I ran for it, and here I am today, 20-some years later.
You said you were taking courses in college, I assume?
Yeah, I went and took some farming stuff and agriculture stuff because that's what my field was in.
Absolutely.
And then when I got interested in law enforcement, I had to go back. When I was with the police department, they actually sent me to Alabama, and I became a certified canine instructor to train dogs and men for canine work and stuff. So, different things have led to me going down different paths and taking different courses for what was needed for what part I was going into. And of course, I've taken all kinds of forfeiture law courses and search and seizure law courses because when I was working on drug task force, a lot of it was search warrants and seizing people's houses, monies, cars, and things like that.
So, out of your 20 years as being sheriff, and out of all the time that you've been a part of the force, what are some of your most memorable moments?
I got so many. I could probably write a book. But like I said, when I started with the police department, we had a lot of turnover because police hours are normally low in this area, and a lot of people left our police department. So I was kind of thrown into it real fast. I went in as a cadet, and 20 days later, I was wearing a badge and a gun out actually calls because we were so short-handed. But so again, I've always been able to jump into stuff. At that time, the police department didn't even have detectives. So first thing, I was one of the first, I think, third detective they had over there. So because I was in the right thing as the growing time, I got to experience a lot of things in law enforcement. And like I said, when we started with the sheriff's office, I think we had 14 deputies at the time. In this county, because of the economic boom took off and the housing boom took off, the county tripled in size, and so the sheriff's office has really grown. Of course, in law enforcement, it's no different than everything we've seen, and because of technology and a lot of other things and when we first started, we were arresting people with most of the people we were arresting and dealing with were probably either school dropouts or people with low IQs or low education. Now we're arresting people with master's degrees and 4-year degrees. So to keep up with the times, and back used to thought fingerprints and collecting them was very good. Now DNA's come so far. When first DNA come out, you had to have actually a fluid. Now you can get it from the scales of someone's skin. So you've had to keep up with them times and keep up with all that training and stuff.
in your field of profession, do you feel that there's any improvements that could be done, or any changes by the citizens of your county that could be done?
Well, the biggest thing we see is now is just the morals of our country have gone down so much, and there's so many people out here now that don't care about having a criminal background or a criminal record, and they'll take the easy way out. They'd rather go commit crimes than go get a decent job, pay and stuff like that. So I see that more so than I did when I first started this. And of course, with the technology stuff, is like I said, is we've seen people that are very educated have found that they can use their education to either hack into people's computers or do child porn and things like this stuff. So it's take a full gamut circle of what kind of person you're dealing with in law enforcement. But yes, the citizens, and it's kind of like I tell people about our school systems. People talk about different school systems having problems. Well, any agency has problems. But really, just like in your school, it's probably 99% of the kids want to go there and do the right thing. It's that 1% that gets talked about so much. And the media capitalizes on negative because that's what people like to read. So the same thing in law enforcement. Yes, we always can improve, but most of our citizens are good people. I grew up here and lived here all my life, so I know a lot of the people that live here. They're good people and good families, and they want to do right. And we've started our community watch stuff and stuff like that, where citizens, because you in your own neighborhood see stuff that law enforcement are not going to recognize just riding through. Because you're going to know. I mean, neighbors looking out for neighbors and things like that.
Absolutely.
So then things is, citizens can always help out. Is the more, that's why we push training the, citizen watch community, watch people, and we have even people that volunteer to help us during like the storms coming in, where community preparedness and stuff like that. So, things that we could improve on is in law enforcement is no different than anything else. Is it comes down to money. We could do a lot better if we had more manpower. Same thing in McQuimmons where you live is if they had more money, they could do better things.
Absolutely.
One of the things right now, just like DNA, it's come a long way in fingerprints, but we're waiting a year to 2 years sometimes to get it back from the lab because the lab's so understaffed. And because so much stuff is being going on, we only have 2 labs in the whole state.
Oh my, really?
That everything has to go to.
Wow.
So, there's a lot of things we could improve but of course people, our economy's not bounced back, so people don't have more taxes paid and if you don't have income, the legislators and the people that have to fund these things can't raise people's taxes anymore, and you have to live within your means. So, we've got loads of room to improve.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to you've got to have the money. So you have to kind of prioritize, just like you would in your own home budget. I'd love to have a Lamborghini, but I can afford a Volkswagen,
Yeah.
So you have to you have to do with what you have, with what means you have to do with.
Yeah. Do your officers ever have any problems when, if they ever, for example, come to a traffic stop and they have what would you call the driver of a traffic stop? What would that be?
Would this be a person that did violate a traffic crime you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you do. Anytime you're basically, when you do a traffic stop or you're arresting somebody, you've just taken away their freedom for that period of time so they're bonded out or whatever. Some people are very cooperative, and some people will resist arrest. And then we have standards that we follow to verbal, to soft hands, to, even maybe tasing someone.
Yeah.
But you have to, and they receive training, and we have so many yearly in-service training dealing with the public, and even minority sensitivity and juvenile sensitivity and stuff like that, because we're dealing with people of all ages, all different nationalities and races, and you've got to learn to deal with these people and do it in the most professional manner, but still effectively do your job.
When you first started, did you guys have any kind of thing resembling a dash cam?
No.
Are you happy that you have them now?
Yeah, we actually were one of the first departments over here to even put laptops. All of our vehicles have laptop computers in them, and That's the way our calls are dispatched now. When I first started, we were dispatched by two-way radio. Our calls are all received and dispatched unless it's an emergency call, like armed robbery in progress. They're going to go ahead and get that out on the radio. But we actually started with the dash cams, and the officers were wearing mics back when that technology first came out. Is we were using VHS tapes, and so we went through the gamut to now we're to a digital high density type cameras in the cars. So right now our cars are equipped with more dollars worth of equipment than the car costs. Because between our dash cams, our radars, our laptops and the computers, and where they can dispatch, they actually type their reports when they take a report from you now instead of coming back like when I started. We actually wrote it down and we went back on a typewriter. Most kids today in high school don't even know what a typewriter is. They think. My kids still ask me what kind of cell phone I had when I went to high school. Their cell phones weren't even out.
Yeah.
Now we're using air cards in our laptops. That's how they communicate. It's the same way your telephone would communicate. It's just going through the telephone, the cell service towers is how we communicate.
I think dash cams and all the technology that like the cameras.
The body cameras now.
Cams.
We're looking at them too now. We put in for a grant for some of them.
The body cams and dash cams, I think they're wonderful things, and they can just back up the liability of it. When
Right.
officers report, because some people, they'll get like if they try to resist arrest or if they say no and God forbid lay their hands on an officer and they get body slammed or tased and they'll try to come back with a lawsuit. You always have that that camera there to kind of be like, well, no, this is what happened. This violator tried to resist arrest and I did what I had to do.
But see, back in '94 when I first started, is the sheriff here is they didn't even have the dash cams out yet. But we even had deputies that wore the digital recorders in their pocket for that. Because people would say when they stopped me, they did this, or when they come to my house, they did this or didn't do that. Well, it actually helps the officer verify his side more. Is they're already seeing now with this big push of body cameras. A lot of people that were saying they wanted them are saying now they don't want them because it's proving them to be out the bad guy, not the law enforcement.
Yeah, have you seen? I know it came out last year. I think around last October, there was an officer. He arrested a woman. I want to say it was in New York, but I'm not sure. And when he got her to the office, she's in the interrogation room or the holding room, and then she's like, "I got to go to the bathroom." He's like, "All right, well," walked her to the bathroom, and he gave her 5 minutes, and he came back and he knocked on the door, and and there's stalls in there, so. Knocked on the door and opened it a little bit, like, "Ma'am, it's time to go." And she's like on the phone with her lawyer, and because he had already told her that she couldn't make any phone calls in the restroom, and he was like, "Ma'am, you need to come out." And then she's like, "Oh my God, why are you in the stall with me?" And he has a body cam, and you can see, So that just, and because she was on the phone with her lawyer and letting her lawyer hear all this, and like you said about the media always likes to focus on the negative, and that's something that just always upsets me because a lot of people they have this negative viewpoint of officers and this negative idea of police officers, and like you said, everyone's always recognized by the 1%. And sure, there are that 1%, maybe 0.5% of officers out there who do abuse their power to whatever means, whether it be rolling through red lights or whatever. But there's always that 99% that nobody ever recognizes that do their job. They do a wonderful job at their job.
And you see that in every profession. You look through some of the different denominations of churches that went through where one pastor or priest made a mistake. What got all the airtime? The one that made the mistake is nobody. We're all human beings, and nobody's perfect.
Absolutely.
And law enforcement and preachers and school administrators and teachers are a lot of times are held at a higher standard and should be. So when one of them does a human mistake, then it makes the whole profession look bad to the general public who don't understand it. But and that's why we stress to our young officers coming into it, you've got to be careful. Because if you ever make a mistake, it follows you the rest of your life because you're held at a higher standard. For instance, somebody could go get fired from a fast food restaurant and go right to another place and work. If you get fired from law enforcement, you can't hardly find a job anywhere.
Yeah.
Same thing is in the military that you're talking about you're interested in. They're held at a higher standard. If you get anything other than an honorable discharge, it may affect you even from buying a gun. You know, because even though we're all human and nobody expects anybody to be perfect, but some professions are just held at a little higher standard, and if you do make that mistake, it can really affect you. Of course, that's what we try to tell young people, that nowadays is more people are polygraphing people for jobs and looking at their criminal records in any job you go in. Well, so what we're saying is once you reach 16 in North Carolina, you can be treated as an adult, and that record can follow you all your life. So you got to think about before you start using drugs, or you go steal something from a store. May have been a prank. You know, we've seen people doing senior pranks and get in trouble and then when they go get a job the people are looking at, well, I don't hire him because I got this person over here that's just as qualified but with a perfect no record.
Yeah, I absolutely understand. Yeah, and I enlisted right now. Technically, I have my ship date and everything. When I went to MEPS back in August, up in Fort Lee, Virginia, like one of the first things that my recruiter had to do, Sergeant Haber over by Walmart, the recruiting station, he had to go to my school and he had to get my transcripts to prove that I'm still in high school and I haven't dropped out. And then he had to go to the Clemens County Sheriff's Department, or the annex building that we have over there, to get my records.
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of people don't think is that they can't look at your juvenile records.
Right, they can't look at juvenile records. Yeah. They can look at anything over 16.
Yeah, because when he went there, I really don't know it.
Probably a clerk of court.
Yeah, it was a clerk, and what they'll do is when she was looking at it, and it says record, she signed it off, and where it says juvenile record, she X'd it out because they, he can't get a look at it. And then when I was up there, they told me they were going to hire a federal investigator, so they could see him. But yeah, is there anything you'd like to say to?
No, I appreciate it. Yes, I'm proud of you for going in the military.
Yeah, any inspirational words for?
Like I said, the thing about it is if everybody would do the right thing, is our whole job would be, what our motto is we like to keep people from ever getting involved in crime. We're not about arresting everyone.
Absolutely.
Prevention is way cheaper and better than apprehension.
Absolutely.
And so that's been my motto for over 30 years now that I've been in law enforcement between the different agencies I've worked for. But, and I was brought up is to treat everybody like I want to be treated. So you never believe is when I first was on the police department, some nights there was only 2 of us out there working. A lot of times I would get into positions where I was in crowds of 300-400 people by myself trying to effect their arrest. You know who come to my aid? It's other people I'd arrested because I treated them right when I arrested them.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like I tell people, law enforcement have a job to do, and they should be doing it professional. It's no different than if you're a cashier in the store and I walk through your line, I have to pay for my items. We have to enforce the laws. We don't make the laws. We have to enforce them, and we're going to enforce them fairly and equal for all people. And we don't take it personal. We're just doing our job. Is we take an oath to enforce the laws. As long as people understand that most people, when they break the law, they put themselves in that own position. It's no different than, luckily I hadn't had to fire a bunch of people, but I tell them when they come in, if I've got to let them go because of something they did wrong, I'm not firing them. They fired themselves. They did what they did. I didn't make them do it.
Absolutely.
And so, if society would look at that and look at it from them principles, I think we'd all get along better and have a more peaceful world.
Right.
Thank you for coming in.
All right, thank you.
I won't take up all your time.
And it's
Zero Phil.
all right, thank you. Well, I guess what made you want to? What do you do?
Currently I'm assigned as a sergeant of criminal investigations. I also am on the tactical team, but I'm ultimately a police officer first.
Okay, what made you want to step up to do this job?
A lot of my friends had done it. I thought about it as I got older. I started when I was 25. It's one of those things where I thought about it, dismissed it, thought about it, dismissed it. Other things kept coming up. People kept suggesting. I dismissed it, and eventually I just decided to become a police officer.
Okay. What exactly does one have to go through to become a police officer?
In North Carolina, each state is different, but in North Carolina you have to go and complete a course called the Basic Law Enforcement Training Program. It consists of anywhere from, how depends on which year, that you go 500 to 600 hours, and each year it increases slightly. 4-month time period, and then you're allowed to then sit and take the state exam. Once you pass the state exam, then you can be a law enforcement officer in the state of North Carolina.
Is there anything that you like prior education other than obviously a high school diploma?
No.
All right. Are you happy with your job? Would you consider this career as your bliss?
Yes, I wouldn't do any other job.
All right. Right now, I'm actually a pulley for the United States Marine Corps.
Okay.
I haven't signed a job contract. I've gone to NEPS and I'm enlisted as a pulley. I ship next July as of right now. And for the longest time, I tossed around the idea of whether or not I want to be a police officer for the longest time. I was like, oh man, SWAT, that'd be awesome. A tactical team. And then I'm not gonna lie, the last couple years I've tossed around either lawyer or mechanic. But ever since I interviewed the sheriff, I've been really interested in possibly, becoming a police officer after my enlistment with the United States Marine Corps. I have to see where that takes me.
Okay.
Is there anything other than that I could do to possibly help me to get ready for to try to become a police officer?
To actually become a police officer, no, there's nothing that can help you except life experience.
Okay.
Excuse me. Obviously, the more life experience you have, the more people that you talk to that have life experience, you can draw for that when you get into some of the situations we get into. And I'm not talking about the violence, just handling they just resolving conflicts or disputes. There's so many different facets of being a police officer. One, you have to be very obviously intelligent because you have to learn things at a rapid speed and then apply them almost immediately. From book work to just simple passing out verbal communication to making inferences from just things that you glean from everyday patrol, i.e., you know that in this neighborhood, these cars are always here, they're always here, and all of a sudden, a vehicle that's out of place in the neighborhood, you take a mental note, you look at it, you don't see anything obvious about it, but then later, somebody goes, hey, you had a break and enter in this neighborhood, you go, there was a vehicle here, looked like this, it was out of place, that could be a suspect. So that's what I mean, you have to be very observant and retain everything. Aside from that, you need to be physically fit because not everybody just stops and waits for you to put handcuffs on them, so you have to run after them, you might have to wrestle them to get them in handcuffs. You also have to have good verbal communication because not everybody needs to have a physical fight. You can't talk to a lot of people and make them come to the agreement of getting in handcuffs. So there's so many different facets. As long as you have life experience, intelligence, you're willing to learn, you'll be fine in this career.
Yeah, because when I was talking, the last person I interviewed in this particular line of work, a lot of the things they talked about that most police officers try to do, they want prevention, they don't want prosecution per se, because the more that you guys can prevent a crime, the better that it'll be, because I absolutely agree about the verbal skills, because if you can talk down a situation and get someone to relax and sit down and tell you what's going on, and you don't have to worry about people shouting, fighting, or whatever, then that's just a lot less work on everybody else. It's a lot less stressful and it's a lot easier and smoother. Do you have kind of like a story about how you got to this point in your life? Or?
Not really a story, it's just what happened. It's not per se a story. Started out a small town, moved over to a different small town. Then I went to a bigger agency, and then I ended up here. Everything that I did on every single call in all the different places, I just keep with that and I remember and draw from it. So I wouldn't consider it to say as a story, it's just what happened.
Okay. If you were to look, like when you were a senior in high school, or when you were about my age, 17, 18 years old, would you have seen yourself where you are today?
No.
Absolutely not. Where do you think you would have been?
Probably a music education teacher.
Music education, like a band director? Yes. Really?
Yes.
Were you in band in high school?
Yes.
What did you play?
I started out playing in the high school, in the band. I started out playing saxophone.
Really? I'm also playing band as well. I started off on trumpet and I've just gone down the line now. I play tuba, so. Any words of wisdom? Any
get into as many things as you can get into in the military. Learn as much as you can learn. You never know what you're gonna like until you do it. Everybody has an idea of what they would like. And as I just said, I was a music education teacher. That changed. I've been a police officer now for almost 18 years. So just do as much as you can do. Just keep an open mind about things, and something will come across the horizon that you love.
Alright. What was your name and rank?
Yeah.
And your rank?
Sergeant.
Alright, thank you. Hello, this is Ryan Minster, band director at Perkins County High School. This is Tavissenior, senior at Perkins County High School, and I was curious if I could schedule an interview with you during maybe around 10:30 next Thursday. Would that be okay with you? Okay, thank you so much. Have a good day. Goodbye. State your name.
I'm Ryan Minster, band director for Perkins County High School.
Alright, as a band director, what does that job
I teach the band class, I teach a percussion class, most any instrumental music that goes on here, I'm the one who facilitates that, run the marching band, jazz band next semester.
Okay. What kind of, like, certifications or, like, guts, per se, does it take to be a band director? What kind of attributes does it take?
Well, the paperwork, I have certification to teach K through 12 instrumental music. Got a Bachelor of Music Education. As far as guts, got to be able to bounce back from a lot of stuff. I mean, coming out of college, I had a lot of great experiences with like all this really wonderful musicians I got to play with. Got to like work under some really, really talented people who helped me become a really good musician. And so you get all this really, really good music, and then you come into the high school or middle school world, and it doesn't sound like that. And you have to figure out how to make it sound like that, and how to not get upset that it doesn't sound like that yet, because obviously it's not going to.
Yeah.
So yeah, resiliency, perseverance, figuring stuff out.
Adversity.
Adversity builds character.
Lost one trick thoughts. Alright. What led you to be a band director?
Well, I around about 11th through 12th grade, I figured, you know what, I really like this whole music thing. I should pursue a career in music. And I went off to college majoring in music. Didn't know if I was going to do education, performance, or like start writing stuff or whatever. But I did that, and I figured, I mean, it's tough to get a steady job as a trombone performer. So maybe I should just go the education route. And then eventually I realized I could get a steady job as a trombone performer. I could handle that. I mean, that could be fun. So I had to decide: do I want to focus more on my musicianship, or do I want to focus more on helping other people? And I figured the best way to make a difference in the world is to work in the public high school.
Looking back, well, I mean, obviously you wouldn't say senior year because that's obviously what you thought. Oh, okay, I'm gonna pursue a career in music, and not really. We all know that was ages ago. Looking back, when you say freshman year, did you ever see yourself becoming a musician? Or not? Well, obviously, yes, you saw yourself becoming a musician. Did you ever see yourself working in as a band director at Tavissenior High School? Not necessarily this school, but just in general as a band director.
Anytime you're part of any organization, I think if you spend enough time around somebody, you think, I can do that. And so, as much time as I spent around the band, even by that point, it was only through a middle school band, but I mean, hanging around the band director, I'm like, I can do that. I might do this a little bit. But
how long? Like, when you went to college, what colleges did you go to? For how long did you go to these colleges?
I was at Furman University for 4 years.
Is that it? So, how long were you out of college before you came to teach?
It was, I graduated in May of 2014, and...
From Furman?
From Furman.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. From high school. Sweet college in there, yeah. But yeah, I graduated then, and I I'd been looking for a job for a little while, since about April. Furman's in South Carolina, so I started looking in South Carolina, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm from North Carolina, I might look in North Carolina too. Looked all throughout the summer, had like 7 interviews with middle schools, because at first I thought I wanted to be a middle school band director. I applied for the job at Perquimans County Middle School. They asked, hey, do you want to interview for the high school job as well? I said no. And I interviewed for the middle school job, and when they told me I didn't get it, they said, hey, the high school needs somebody. I said, okay, I'll interview for that. Interviewed for it, got a call the next day. Band camp started like 2 weeks after that. So there was, as soon as I got the call, I had to hit the ground running, getting stuff ready and set up. Yeah.
No time to relax for you.
Not at all, no. I was either sweating the whole summer because I didn't have a job yet, or sweating because I finally had one and had to get to it.
So, how would you explain college experience? Like, what kind of life did you have in college?
What kind of life did I have in college? Well, there are certainly a number of stories I won't tell you. But, yeah, I mean, it was, as far as the academics, I studied just general music, music theory, learning how to become a better musician for 2 years. At Furman, the music education track and the music performance track and the music theory, music anything track is the exact same for the first 2 years. And then after that, once you've got the ground-based knowledge, you can explore the other stuff.
So at Furman, is it a college, or is it not a tech school, but is it like a tech school but for music? Like when you went there, did you have to go and get your standard English class? And
Yes,
math class?
yes, I had to take, we call them GERs, General Education Requirements. Had to knock those out of the way before I did much anything else.
Alright. So what musical related courses did you take in high school? I mean, not high school, college.
College, yeah. There was music theory, there was a lot of that, music history. Once I got into the specific music education classes, there were like woodwind methods, where we spent a semester, here's a clarinet, here's how you play clarinet, and I had to learn, here's a flute. I had to learn how to play all the instruments so that I could teach other people how to play those instruments.
Yeah.
I'm a boss of the flute.
Are you really?
I'm a boss of the flute. No, I was pretty good at it, for having spent 3 weeks on it. But yeah, those are probably my favorite, because I got a break from trombone, and had trombone lessons the entire time. Had to be good enough at trombone to give a recital of it. 30-minute recital junior year, another 30-minute recital senior year.
So is it like a requirement for every musician to give a recital, or is it just like, okay, he wants to do a 30-minute?
It was a requirement to do one of them. I did 2 of them because I wanted to keep working. Didn't want to get sloppy.
Lazy. Don't want to get that senioritis.
Yeah.
All right. Any, not to get too personal, but any hardships that you've had to face throughout this last, say, 8 years or 10 years?
The summer of unemployment was a little bit rough. I mean, it was summer, so I wasn't going to be working anyway, even if I had a job. But the constant in the back of my mind: am I going to get hired? Am I going to have to find something else to do?
Yeah, you're gonna have to change your whole career path.
Right. But I knew that this is what I'm designed for. This is what I'm being called to do. Without getting too religious on it.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, this is what I'm.
Understand.
This is where I'm supposed to be. The one I'm supposed to be doing. So I knew that there would be a way that I would get to do that.
Any words of wisdom that don't include influence character?
Life throws you curveballs. You don't wind up where you thought you were going to wind up. And if you do wind up where you thought you were going to wind up, it's a completely different thing than you thought it was going to be. So be ready for whatever different stuff happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today is November 19th. Senior project is due next month. This is probably the last chance I'm going to have to work on it this week before we turn it in, because next week I'll be in Maine spending time with my family, because this may be the last chance I'll get to spend some time with them, because my grandmother has stage 3 ovarian and uterine cancer, so it could go either way, you never know. Also, with that being said, I've really taken the senior project to heart. A lot of the things that I've listened to and I've heard, I mean, these interviews haven't just been, okay, I'm going to ask you questions, listen to you talk, not take it to heart, and just put it together just so I can get a good grade on this silly little project for school. It's been a lot more than that so far this year. It's been me going out there, talking to people, and I'm going to be dead serious. At the beginning of the semester, I had my heart set on joining the Marine Corps, and then becoming a diesel technician, and then supporting my family that way. But at this point in the semester, after everything that's happened to me so far this year, and just after interviewing all these people and hearing all these people talk, I'm kind of thinking about, instead of being a diesel technician, I'm thinking about maybe just joining the National Guard and getting in to their state and federal funding for education, because I'm really just joining the military for tuition. I mean, at heart, I'd rather be a Marine. I'll swear up and down every day that I'd rather be a Marine. It's much more prestigious. It's just so much better than being in the Army, but this is something I have to do for my family, because when I grow up, I don't want to be a Marine. I don't want to be a diesel technician. I don't want to be a cop. I don't want to be I just want to be a good father, and that's my dream as a human being, is to just be a good provider, to just be a good father, because in my heart, that's what I'm passionate about, is raising my children to be right and act right. But along the way, I have explored and thought about what I want to do, and it's gone from having the hope and dream of a diesel tech to actually thinking about being a cop after I interviewed Sheriff Randy Cartwright. I kind of thought, I kind of want to help people. I really want to do this. And I mean, shoot, last year before, I wanted to be a lawyer. That was my dream, is to grow up and be a lawyer. And I don't want to do that. I mean, it's fun. I love to argue, but I couldn't make that commitment. I don't love it enough to do that. But throughout my senior project, I've interviewed a sheriff, a special weapons and tactics officer out of the Elizabeth City Police Department. I've interviewed a musician, and I've interviewed a lawyer. And out of all those people, what I've decided thinking about to do with the rest of my life is, be a good father. That's what I've had set in my heart since 8th grade. But job-wise and career-wise, I'm honestly either thinking about being a cop or sticking with diesel technician, because I love to work with engines and automotive and motors, but there's no gas. There's no money in automotive technology. Working on cars, SUVs, trucks, there's no money there. All the money is in diesel technology, because if you go and you become a diesel technician, you can work on trucks, big rigs. This is what I'm talking about when I say trucks. Dodge pickups, if you want to go that far. Industrial, because they have generators and giant motors that run off diesel. You have marine, because there's ships, and I mean marine is an ocean. There are ships that have diesel engines. The trains have diesel engines. You could even go as far as working, for aviation if you really wanted to. But I mean, I just feel like this is going to be a much better way to provide for my family, just going with the National Guard and then going to college. For example, next semester I'm enrolling in a welding course at COA, a night course, and I'm really excited about that, because what I want to do is I want to go and want to go and get this welding course down and then use that degree to go to just go onward with my life and get that diesel technician degrees and then be met and be happy and be able to support my family, my wife, and my kids. So, I mean, in the long run, my dream, my everlasting dream, like I said, is to be a good father. And by doing that, I need to go to go to college, get a good education. I need to make a lot of money. Because I wasn't raised in the richest environment, but I don't want my children growing up with the stress that I grew up with, having to worry about if we're gonna have heat this month, if we're gonna have electricity, water, if we're gonna have a roof over our heads. Because too many times growing up have I heard my mom complain about we may be losing our house at the end of the month when I ask for something, and she doesn't mean it, but she means it, but she doesn't mean to make me feel bad. But it's just her way of saying, no, we can't do this for you because we don't have any money. I just don't want my children to have to worry about my debt in everything that I've done, money-wise, financially. And I just want to use the lessons that I've learned from my mistakes and that I've learned from my father's mistakes and my father's teachings and pass it on to my children, because I'd like for my children to be an actual good part of society. I don't want my children to be like the kids you see nowadays who just hop up on everything because it's the newest fad. So, all I can say, my piece of advice for you is don't let someone's answer hold you back from your dreams. Don't let your own answer hold you back from your dreams. My advice to you is don't let your dreams honestly be dreams. Yes, it's a meme, but don't let somebody else's answer or your own answer stop you. Even if you think you can't, try. If it's what you want to do, you need to try. You need to push through that barrier, push through that comfort zone. I did it, and as a senior, honestly, I'm happy. I'm happier than I've ever been in my entire life. I mean, I've got a plan. Everything's going fine at home. I've got a good amount of friends. Honestly, even though it's stupid to say, as a 17-year-old, I've got a girl that loves me. Everything's going good for me. All those people, and I can speak for myself here because I've been there, who don't feel like their life is going to go anywhere, who just want to end it right now, overnight, don't. Because I did that. I tried, and it ruined my entire life, and it was just awful. So, push.